had an opportunity to catch up with Mark Jeffers of Storybook Theater, and we actually asked him, so you got something exciting happening this coming Saturday.
Yeah, that's not a surprise. We occasionally do things that are pretty exciting down in Hanapepe.
So the Storybook Theater, for the viewing audience, everybody knows Russell the Rooster, over 20 years. Storybook Theater, what a story in itself. I guess an old rustic abandoned building, and bottom line is you can't tear that stuff down. You gotta restore it in the old-fashioned way, old school way.
People thought we were a little Lolo when we took over this property. It's a Hawaiian land and it's an old Chinese restaurant. But the building itself, we needed something that would catch people's attention. So I started to talk around town to some of the old timers and say, hey, what's this town famous for? What's going on here? Who are the great heroes and sheroes of this place? And Sparky's name kept coming up. Lefty Ozaki and Mr. Nakashima and Mr. Mitball and all these people that were in that generation, that Nisei generation, that all had nicknames from AJA baseball. And they told me Sparky was the man. So we talked to the family, and they said, yes, use Sparky's legacy to help to develop the program and the project. And then, of course, eventually we opened the garden, and there's the bronze statue of Spark Matsunaka.
So now when you say Sparky was the man, for the benefit of many of whom are not just necessarily visitors, but those have called Kauai their home, most recent times, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago. When you talk about somebody like Sparky, that was quite a while back, but why was he, or who is he as a man?
Well, Nisei means a second-generation Japanese family. He's a Japanese American. He was an American citizen, but he was born in the time of the Great Depression. And as he grew up, of course, the United States was called into war, World War II. And he was, as a Japanese man, he had to make decisions about what was going to happen because, of course, going into war with the Japanese meant that he had to join the American Army. So after some exciting times as a youth, including headed off to college, which was really rare in those days, especially coming from a poor family, he joined the American Army and was shipped to do basic training, I believe, in Minnesota. And then his unit, the 100th Battalion, was sent to northern Italy. And they became famous. They were the Go for Broke Battalion, and they are the most decorated unit in the American Army in World War II in the European theater. So he got out, and he was given the task of giving the famous 800 speeches for reparations for having put the Japanese families into internment camps. So he was primary mover and shaker for that whole initiative in the American, right after World War II. And he became a politician. And be reflecting back is, it's like if you don't know your history, then you don't have a history. And I'm encouraging people to come and see this documentary, this docudrama about Sparky because of that, because knowing your history is really important. And so he became a politician during the time of statehood. And you know, that whole Japanese contingency was very strong and very moving towards proving their loyalty and helping the Hawaii become a state in the United States. And then he went into the American Congress as a congressperson in the early 70s and spent almost 18 years as a United States congressman and senator. And then he died in office in 1990. And he was a very famous person because he was very strategic in his politics. He made sure he had everybody on board before he presented legislation for voting. But he stuck with it. Like, for example, the United States Institute of Peace, it took him 20-something years to bring that legislation to fruition. But he had, 80 or 90 co-signers of the bill when he brought it to the Senate. And the United States Institute of Peace is a real feather in his cap, but a feather in our cap as an initiative that really helps people to understand that we need peace in the world now. His idea was world peace in our lifetime, and we can do it. He had great ideas for making world peace happen. I want the children in Hanapepe and the children of Kauai to understand this person as a hero, because it's more important to look at people like Sparky who've done things that have benefited not only our state, but the whole world, as important people, heroes that they can emulate because they came from here. You know what I'm saying? You can pick a hero that came from Washington D.C. or Europe or something, but to pick a hero from this place, that's what impressed me about Spark. And his family are very good people, and they're very down home people and down to earth people. This film that was edited by Robert Zelkowski, Bamboo Moon Video, really tells an amazing story because it's told by a storyteller. We have a professional storyteller, Alton Takayama Chun, who wrote a play about Spark. And how do you write a play about somebody? Do you become that person, or how do you do it? And so what Alton did was he became Sparky's friend, an imaginary character, a fictional character that grew up with Spark and went to war with Spark, and then became a security guard at the Capitol and knew Spark because Spark was a work late kind of guy.
Now, we've asked a friend of his to say a few words about the late senator. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Kenny Hiro Hiroshi. Hi. They would ask me to say a few words about my friend, Spock Matsunaga. You know, if Sparky was here right now, he'd be laughing his head off because he don't like talking in public. I mean, he was the outgoing guy. He was the guy who, you see a family with kids, you go over there and tell them stories from Hawaii.
And Hiro was the person in the film that we created, that tells the story of Sparky Matsunaga. But then he suddenly transforms and becomes Sparky himself and says some of Spark's poetry and some of his tough times in his life, the hard times in his life.
If we want peace, we must educate our people to want peace. We must replace attitudes favorable toward war with attitudes that are opposed to war. Teachers should let generals fall to the background and perhaps replace them with leaders of social change and bring them to the foreground. We must show our young people that there are other types of bravery than that which is shown on the battlefield.
So it's a very interesting play on, it's like watching a stage play, a storyteller and a character, a real life character in history. And we were able to get some great historic footage. We did a lot of research, went to the university archives and the Daniel K. Inouye media archives, and we found some videotape of Spark so people will actually hear his voice.
To one additional subcommittee to which I was not assigned, but I've been assigned to 4 different subcommittees. The principal one of which is the Foreign Agricultural Operations Subcommittee, headed by Congressman Pogue of Texas. And this is the committee which has been looking into.
He's a great speaker. You know, that kind of, generation where all people, Japanese people, Chinese people, Filipino people, they learned how to speak correctly the English language in order to be sure that people would listen to them and understand, you know what I'm saying? In other words, they rose to that challenge of good language.
Well, I think at that point in time, you also had to prove yourself to show them that not only you could speak proper grammar, if you will, but you are educated in the sense that you could deliver what you're trying to speak eloquently. When they're listening, they finally listen to you.
Yes.
Then they're saying, hey, this cat knows what he's talking about.
Right. And we have examples of that. I don't know, you probably met Patsy Mink and, and Spark, of course. Many of the people that we've interviewed and talked with actually knew Spark and talked with Spark. The people of Hanapepe sometimes were disappointed because they didn't get enough of Spark. You know, he lived in Washington, D.C., and when he came back, he was in the political campaigning mode a lot of the time. This videotape, though, we had to make choices on where to show it and how to present it to the public. So this showing is a world premiere, and it's on October 5th, which is this coming Saturday. And it's at the Hanapepe United Church of Christ, which is a stone's throw from where Spark grew up, there close by the river in Hanapepe, right across from the Hanapepe Library. We're going to open up the doors at 5:30, and we have pupus and desserts from area restaurants. So people will be able to sample good cuisine from the area restaurants. And then we have two guest speakers, Brian Hallett, who's a professor of peace studies at the Matsunaga Institute of Peace at University of Hawaii, and Stephanie Castillo, who's a documentary filmmaker. She's going to talk about the challenges of making documentary films. And then we have some of our board members. I'm hoping to tickle Dr. Zalkowski, see if I can get him to talk about what it's like to spend, I don't know, 100 hours editing a film, you know.
Minimum.
You know, what a world, right? And then we have Taiko Kawai. So we're going to have some excitement. We're going to recognize people in the audience because we do have some great people coming. And we want everybody to come. If the $25 ticket admission price scares you a little bit, please just come and ask for a ticket and make a donation at the door. We want you to come and to see the film. It's an important film. I remember listening to Roselle Bailey tell me one time, she says, Mark, history is so important because if you don't know your history, then you don't have a history. And that's one of the reasons why young people go a little bit crazy or why we walk around a little bit in a daze is that we're not deeply rooted, you know, in our history, our historical past. And the more we look back at that, the more we can be solid and confident in who we are.
Now, when you say it's the world premiere, are you saying that this is going to be the first time that human eyes actually have seen this film?
I like how you said that. Yes, we've never shown it. We never put it on our TV show. We've never showed it at Storybook Theater. We've never shown it. So this is the very first time it's a world premiere.
So my question is, honestly, because I can anticipate a nice, inquisitive crowd, you know, kupuna, or perhaps the children of those that grew up with Sparky, their children that knew Spark.
Certainly.
I would imagine that, I would hope that people would like to pass this info down, as you mentioned, to history. So hopefully youngsters, you know, maybe teenagers or, you know, the millennials, if they really want to know what happened in back then, Kauai's biggest little town, which was probably like 20 times smaller than what it is now.
Well, the Hanapepe competed with Lihue to be the capital of this island. I don't know if you knew that story, but, you know, Lihue won out because they finished their harbor first. But Hanapepe was not a plantation town. And so it was rough and ready, and it was a port town. So during the war days and during the sugar plantation days, the harbor, there was a lot of influx of people, and it was a rough and ready place. That's why a lot of merchants, you know, created the town of Hanapepe. I believe that the footage that we have of our storyteller is very nicely woven together with historical photos from the plantation days and from the war days. We were able to get some very nice war photos from the university archives and his political career. So people who come that are in Spark's generation or just slightly younger, my generation, will recognize those photos of Hanapepe and World War II and the politics. And the children will enjoy the storyteller aspect and how our storyteller weaves together that fictional character and the real character together. So there's something there for everybody, I guess. And it's not a long movie. It's 45 minutes long. So we'll have some talk stories, some good food, and a very nice film. And you know, United Church of Christ there in Hanapepe is a very, very comfortable place. And there's a lot of parking. And it's a Saturday evening. The doors open at 5:30. And we'll be pauhana by 8 o'clock or so. So people go home and get their rest.
Well, we look forward to meeting Hiroshi.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say a couple of things. You know, when you talk about Sparky going side by side with the Caucasian, as you mentioned, the Haole,
Yeah.
and wondering why are they making 4 times more than us, this was way before the word discrimination ever came into the Webster's Dictionary vocabulary. But another interesting thing that you say, you mentioned State House of Representative then, Patsy Mink, the vibrant and spunky, not Sparky, but spunky Patsy Mink. It was very interesting because she ran against Sparky for the United States Senate, if you may remember. He won about 70% of the votes, I believe. But it's interesting because in her pathway following the wisdom of then Senator Spark Matsunaga, remember, upon his passing, she championed the equal rights with women.
That's right.
Being able to participate in all sports. That's another incredible story.
Yes.
Because of Sparky, that the women could be in women's soccer, women's basketball, women's softball. Right. And she also equally fought to get equal pay. So this is a great, great story, and I'm hoping that it's a sellout. I'll
Yeah.
do my best to be there, but more
Thank you.
importantly, I can see this documentary at the Waimea Theater. I could see it at the
Princeville.
KCC Performing Arts Center, the Church of the Pacific up at Princeville, because this is something that needs to be shown, and what an honor that it's the world premiere. And I hope a lot of tourists that seek much more than the sun and surf, that really want to dig into the history, because a lot of tourists, they actually do participate in things about history, and they want to do something different.
That's right. In fact, our board of directors said that, no, we've got to do the premiere in Hanapepe.
Absolutely.
This is Sparky's place. This is Sparky's town. We've got to do it here. And then you're right. We'll try to do a little lay of showings around the island and make sure that everyone sees it. Now, we will have the DVD available for $20 at the premiere, so people can take it home with them and watch it at their leisure as well.
Wow, that's very, very cool. I want to reach out to, you had mentioned Bamboo Moon Productions,
Yeah.
Dr. Rob Zelkowski. He, again, is one of the many unsung heroes that are behind the camera, but want to thank him. And thank you for allowing the Vala audience to yet again be educated, because I know that you're a historian and you're a storyteller, and what better way to keep the mana'o going by not only being able to portray history, but certainly to be able to tell it so articulately. I'm so very, very surprised at how much you studied into Sparky, or Spark Matsunaga, because what a wonderful man. And you put it best, he served the nation, and when he came here, maybe not as much time to reflect in the Hanabata days, because when you're on the campaign trail, you bop in and you bop out, and at least you get to talk story and go, hopefully they had a Hamura Simon, or they went to Wong's restaurant or something, and a Lilikoi chiffon pie or something like that. But mahalo nui loa, and take this opportunity once again to share your aloha and remind us of the time, the ticket donations and what have you, this coming Saturday.
Yeah, it's
October.
coming Saturday, October 5th, Hanapepe United Church of Christ. It's right across from the fire station, right across from the Hanapepe Library. Lots of parking. Doors will open up at 5:30. Please come early. We know it's going to be a nice crowd. We'll have pupus from the local restaurants in Hanapepe and desserts. And then we have some good speakers, Brian Hallett and Stephanie Castillo, and some Taiko Kawai. And watching the film will be great fun. And we want to welcome everybody. If you can't afford that $25 ticket price, come anyway. And we'll make sure that just with your small donation, you can get inside and see the film. So please come and enjoy it.
Spark Matsunaga was a dedicated family man, decorated war veteran, peace advocate, and politician. Join us for the very first screening of the Storybook Theater documentary, Spark Matsunaga, Poet for Peace, Saturday, October 5th, 5:30 p.m. at the Hanapepe United Church of Christ. Tickets, 335-012, or at eventbrite.com. See you at the movie.